ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले अयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णकरुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुतदेवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास आदि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Okay, welcome to the last session of the Gita immersion. So last time when we were discussing, we saw that Krishna delivered his supreme instruction, and by saying Sarva Guhyatamam Bhuyaha Shunu Me Paramam Vachaha. So Paramam Vachaha means supreme instruction. And Krishna is very lovingly delivering it by saying that Ishtu Asime Dridam Iti, that you are very, very dear to me. And therefore I don't mind speaking this instruction one more time, Bhuyaha. And I'm giving this instruction to you, Tato Vakshami Te Hitam, for your benefit, Arjuna. So a lot of different sort of emotions are packed together when Krishna is delivering his supreme instructions. And one thing, I think I need to sign in. So, so Krishna delivered his supreme instruction in supreme instructions in text number 65 and 66. So 65 is Manmana Bhava Madbhakto Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru Mame Vaishyasi Satyam Te Pratijano Priyasi Me. So this is the supreme instruction number 1. In other words, how you can actually go back to your spiritual home, or how you can go back home, back to Godhead. How? By doing 4 things. Manmana means think of Krishna. So always Manmana Bhava. Madbhakto meaning become Krishna's devotee. Madhyaji, worship Krishna. And then Mam Namaskuru, offer your obeisances to Krishna. And we discussed in this context how Krishna is making the process extremely simple. In other words, becoming Krishna's devotee entails developing a favorable attitude towards Krishna. Because many people can think about Krishna, but they may think unfavorably. Like we gave the example of Shishupal. Um, Shishupal is 24/7 thinking about Krishna, but very unfavorably. So that kind of thinking is not what Krishna is suggesting here. So one should be thinking of Krishna in a favorable way, and therefore becoming Krishna's devotee is the um, key factor. And then when you are becoming Krishna's devotee, then naturally, like all your activities will be centered around Krishna. So worshipping Krishna. Now, worshipping can be very grandiose. So that also Krishna is simplifying, that at least you can offer obeisances to me. So therefore, Mam Namaskuru. And just by doing this, by this method, surely Krishna is promising that you will come back to me. So Satyam te pratijane. So I'm promising you this, Arjuna. And again, Krishna is using very loving words I'm promising you this because you are my dear friend, And then the second part of the instruction is that when you are actually in this way becoming Krishna's devotee, you give up all other occupational duties. So here we highlighted that Sarva Dharman Parityajya. Sarva Dharman means all occupational engagements you can give up as long as you are developing your sentiment or your devotion to Krishna. So we should give up all occupational duties and simply go to Krishna only for shelter. And then Krishna is saying that I will free you from all sinful reactions. Don't worry. So this is the overall package of Krishna's, you can say, the final instructions of the Bhagavad Gita. So then Krishna speaks two verses which are not very easily understood or not understood properly oftentimes. What do we do now that we have received the supreme instructions of Krishna? How do we actually take this Bhagavad Gita in and then live the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, and how do we distribute the instructions of Bhagavad Gita? So Krishna is giving some cautionary note, and as well as Krishna is giving his instruction along that line. So Krishna is saying, idam te na atapaskaya, na abhaktaya kadachana, na cha ashushushave vachyam, na cha mam yo abhisuyati. So a lot of things are coming in this verse. So Krishna is saying that this knowledge that I just spoke, this supreme instruction. So this actually, you can say, is referring to literally 18.65 and 66, which Krishna just spoke. Right? So this idam is referring to what Krishna just spoke in 65 and 66. So this confidential knowledge is not to be spoken. So Krishna is saying to Arjuna, te meaning by you, but I'm just trying to personalize this for all of us by saying that this confidential knowledge is not to be spoken by us ever to one who is not austere, first of all. Second of all, not a devotee. Third of all, not interested in hearing. And also to one who envies Krishna or who is acting as a competitor of Krishna. So 4 conditions. So now, in one sense, Krishna is already violating that point. You know why? Because right now, when Krishna is speaking Bhagavad Gita, there are effectively 3 recipients, not just Arjuna. There are 2 other recipients. There is Sanjaya and there is Dhritarashtra. Now, Dhritarashtra is not in the category of a devotee. So in one sense, you can say that this instruction is already sort of violated, at least seems like. So how do we understand this? That this confidential instruction or this confidential knowledge is not to be spoken by us ever to one who is not austere, not a devotee, not interested in hearing. So not interested in this shushrushave has a very deep connotation. It's hearing is not just a passive activity. Hearing is something which is an active hearing. You hear with the intention to apply what we are hearing. Otherwise, that hearing doesn't have any value. So shushushave is a deeper form of hearing. And likewise, those who are envious of Krishna, they should be not sort of given this kind of confidential instructions. So there are 2 ways you can understand this point. So first is that of course, when Krishna is talking about this kind of instruction, Sarva Dharman Parityajya, Mamekam Sharanam Vraja, it almost feels like, okay, join this Republic Party. I belong to Republican, join this Republic Party, or I'm this party, that party. If you join me, that's it. Your life is all set. You don't have to do anything. That's what it may seem like. Like you give up any other company, just join me. I'll take care of you. So this instruction is very deep. It is not meant to be understood in that way that you just join the party and you're all set. Because Krishna had already given so many guidelines and instructions throughout the Bhagavad Gita. This is Krishna is taking at the pinnacle point that ultimately, if you have understood everything in sequence, who are you, who God is, what is your relationship with me. So once you have understood those basic theological points, then you will appreciate this point better. That it is not just about joining any party. It's not just about um, becoming a sycophant or just being a servant without any emotion. Um, so, so in other words, this point is very deep and it is not easy for anyone to accept like this. And therefore, the caution that Krishna is giving is that number one, you should go in sequence when you are explaining what happened to this. You should go in sequence, not just like give the most confidential instruction like this, because others who are not um, well disposed within their heart be able to take in such an instruction. So we have to logically go in sequence, exactly like how Krishna has taken the whole Bhagavad Gita. Like Krishna did not immediately jump into talking about taking shelter of him right away. In second chapter, he just barely gave a hint in the 2.61 that yukta asita mat paraha, right? And he did not speak anything else in the second chapter. In third chapter also, he gave one verse which was connoting Bhakti Yoga, 3.30. Mai sanyasya adhyatma chetasa. So in this way, Krishna started speaking a little more loudly and talking about taking shelter of him more seventh chapter onwards. Before that, Krishna was a little bit caution in terms of giving the highest instruction. So in the seventh chapter, Krishna was very, very direct that Devi Hesha Gunamai, Mama Maya Duratya, Mam Evaya Prapatyantit, Maya Metam Tarantite. If you want to escape the force of Maya, then the only way you can do that is by taking shelter of me alone. So those kind of emphatic instruction did not come in so quickly. So that's why the first point is that we should go in sequence. Okay, whenever we are delivering the message of the Bhagavad Gita. Second point that is coming is that yes, this particular point that Krishna is talking about is not applying to the entire Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is talking about the last two verses that Krishna talked about, which is sort of delivered in a very intimate manner. And if you're talking about something so intimate like this, which Krishna is lovingly delivering it, therefore naturally there has to be some heart level connection, at least some level of attraction is there, some basic acceptance that okay, Krishna is establishing himself to be the supreme personality of Godhead. I at least accept that, and then one can appreciate this instruction better. So this particular verse is particularly applying to the verses 18.65 and 66. These two verses is what this particular instruction is applying to. Okay, so this here Krishna is clarifying whom not to give the knowledge to, and then immediately Krishna is now talking about the flip side. And actually 68 and 69 is a very, very beautiful verse where Krishna is saying ya idam paramam guyam mad bhaktishu abhidhasyati bhakti mai param kritva mam eveshyati asamchaya. You can see this mam eveshyati, it appears many times in the Bhagavad Gita, because that's like the mission's statement of Krishna, that why are we actually engaged in spiritual activities, just so that we can ultimately come back to the spiritual abode. So Mam Eveshyasi means to go back to Krishna's abode. So Krishna is saying that one who explains this supreme secret, right? Krishna already said that Sarva Guhya Tamam, Guhyaha. Krishna used that word, Sarva Guhya Tamam, Guhyaha, which means that Krishna revealed the supreme secret in 65 and 66th verse. So Krishna is saying, one who explains this supreme secret to whom? To Krishna's devotees, performing the highest devotional service unto Krishna, undoubtedly comes to Krishna alone. This mam evashyati asanshaya is something you have also seen in 8.7. Sarve tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhyacha may arpita manobuddhir mam evashyasi asamshaya. So there also Krishna talked about undoubtedly coming to Krishna alone. How? By 24/7 thinking about Krishna. So likewise, here Krishna is saying that if you take this Bhagavad Gita and explain this supreme secret, particularly this 65 and 66, these two verses, if you discuss with the devotees, Mad Bhaktishu means those who have some favorable disposition in the heart. Okay? Performing the highest devotional service. So one who explains this is performing the highest devotional service unto Krishna. And in this way, undoubtedly, that person comes to Krishna alone. And then Krishna takes this point to the highest level in this 69th verse, that nachatasman manushyesu kaschin me priya kritamaha. That except for this person, no one among human beings is dearest to Krishna than a person who is distributing this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita among the favorable class of people. And Krishna is also making sure we understand this is not just a time-bound reality, that it's only today this is valid, but in the future also this is valid. Bhavita nacha me tasmat anya priyataro bhuvihi. And in the future there will be any other person in this planet, bhuvi means in this planet, more dear to Krishna than that. Very, very strong point about how to become dear to Krishna, or how to become dear most to Krishna. So all we have to do is internalize the supreme instruction of Krishna, and then systematically educate others about the science of the Bhagavad Gita. And in this way, it becomes our responsibility to first make people favorable and then share this highest supreme instruction of Krishna to others. Okay, so then Krishna talks about how we receive Bhagavad Gita in our life. So now Krishna is going into this summary portion of the Bhagavad Gita. What is the phalastuti? Phalastuti meaning what is the fruit of studying the Bhagavad Gita? So Krishna is saying, and one who studies this sacred conversation between Krishna and Arjuna worships Krishna by the sacrifice of knowledge. Iti me matihi. Krishna is saying, this is my opinion. So one who studies, so this highlights the importance of studying Bhagavad Gita regularly. Because one who studies this sacred conversation, dharmyam samvadam, avayo ishta syam, between Krishna and Arjuna, worships Krishna by the sacrifice of knowledge, gyan yagyena. So this is what Krishna is saying. And then Krishna is furthermore saying, what is the benefit of listening, paying attention to this Bhagavad Gita? Shraddhavan anusuyascha shunuyad api yo naraha so api mukta shubha lokan prapnuyat punya karmanam. So also, one who listens with faith and without envy. So two conditions. With faith and without envy. Becomes free, so api muktaha, and attains the auspicious planets meant for those endowed with pious actions. So in other words, one becomes eligible to go back to the spiritual abode. With what? Just by listening with faith and without envy this knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita. So this is the phalastuti. Okay. Now, one may ask, what do we get actually out of what should be the mood in which we are supposed to receive this Bhagavad Gita? So that gets settled in the 72nd and the 73rd verse. So this is Krishna, this is the only place where Krishna is asking a question to Arjuna. So after speaking the whole Bhagavad Gita, now Krishna is interested in knowing what Arjuna got from this. So Krishna says, Kachid etach shrutam partha tvayi ekagranya chetasa kachid agyana samoha pranatas te Dhananjaya, that, "O Arjuna, is this message heard by you with single pointed consciousness? And are you, or are your ignorance and illusion now dispelled?" So when we are studying Bhagavad Gita, we can expect two results. Our ignorance should be gone and our illusion should be gone. Agyan and Samoha. So that's Krishna's question. And this is the beautiful response from Arjuna. So we can actually do a litmus test for ourselves. Are we actually hearing Bhagavad Gita with this kind of mood that Arjuna is presenting here? So Arjuna is saying, after hearing this Bhagavad Gita, what happened to him? So Arjuna vacha, nashto moha smritir labdha, tvat prasadan maya achyutaha, sthito asmi gata sandhya karishye vachanam tava. So he points out tvat prasadan. If you remember in those two and a half verses, right? The 18.56, 57, and half of 58. Half of 58, right? We saw how Krishna emphasized on prasadan, that sarva karmani api sada mat kurvano vepashraya. And then Krishna says, mat prasadat avapnoti. By my grace, you will come back to me. And likewise, in the 58th verse, again, he said, mat chitta sarva durgani, mat prasadat tarishyasi. So Krishna used there the word mat prasadat, or my grace. So likewise, Arjuna is saying now that by your grace, tvat prasadan, by your grace, illusion is destroyed. So Arjuna is confirming exactly that. So illusion is now gone. And then memory is regained. So memory of what? So we are all in this state of amnesia, forgetfulness of our eternal relationship with Krishna. We are all suffering from amnesia. And therefore, as a part of our spiritual advancement, what we are getting is the memory back, the memory of our eternal relationship with Krishna. So likewise here, Arjuna is saying, my illusion is dispelled now and memory is regained by me. And then furthermore, Arjuna is saying that illusion is gone. Now I am firmly situated. Firmly situated meaning that I am situated now on a platform that there is no more fall down from here. I am firmly sthito asmi gata sandhya, and I am now completely free from doubt. I do not have any doubt, which means at this point, if Krishna were to say, forget about this battle, okay, let's just leave the battlefield, then Arjuna would have said, yes, I'm ready. In other words, whatever Krishna says, Arjuna is ready to do. And that's exactly what Arjuna is saying. Karishye vachanam tava. I will execute your words. I will execute your words, whatever you say. So this is the ultimate malleability. So when we become devotees, the test of the devotion is really how much malleable we become in the hands of Guru and Krishna. How much we become like a Play-Doh to be given any shape to by Guru and Krishna. So here Arjuna literally is saying, I have become a Play-Doh in your hands, Krishna. Now you can give me any shape you want. So by Krishna's grace, he's saying, by your grace, my dear Krishna, my illusion is destroyed, memory is regained, and I am firmly situated free from any doubt. So at this point, I will execute your words. And of course, you can see throughout the Bhagavad Gita, the stress is on not just following instructions like a robo, but actually following instructions with the right consciousness. So that's why Krishna emphasized in the 58 and a half verse, right? The first part of the 58th verse, Krishna stated there that mat chitta sarva durgani, right? Mat chitta is the key point. Mat chitta means by Krishna consciousness or by being conscious of me. Mat chitta sarva durgani. All difficulties, all obstacles. Mat prasadat tarishyati. By my mercy, by my grace, all obstacles will be completely dissolved. And Arjuna is essentially, this is the last verse, you can say, that is coming from Arjuna at this point. And we can actually now do a test on ourselves and see how much actually we are in that position after going through the entire Bhagavad Gita. And that would be the real test for seeing whether I am properly receiving the Bhagavad Gita or not. And therefore, this is the success criterion for receiving the Bhagavad Gita. And now the final set of verses is coming from Sanjaya. And this is an ecstatic ending and leaving an everlasting impact. So remember, this is a conversation that is taking place between Sanjaya and Dhritarashtra. Sanjaya is having this remote vision by the mercy of his spiritual master, who is Vyasdev, and he is able to see everything that is going on. He is able to hear the dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, and he is just presenting that to Dhritarashtra in the chambers in Hastinapur. So Sanjaya, so this is now Sanjaya going into ecstasy, hearing the Bhagavad Gita. So he's saying, Sanjaya Uvacha, Iti aham Vasudevasya Parthasya cha Mahatmanaha Samvadam imam ashrosham adbhutam romaharshanam. So what's happening to Sanjaya just hearing this Bhagavad Gita? He's saying, I have thus heard this wonderful dialogue between Krishna and the great soul Arjuna. And what's happening to me? My hair is standing on end. In other words, Sanjaya is in ecstasy, Roma Harshanam. And the dialogue is referred to as Adbhutam, like, wow, what a dialogue, you know? So we can actually check also, like, how we are studying Bhagavad Gita. Is there a wow factor to our reading Bhagavad Gita? Or is it like, oh, it's the same instruction going on, like, okay, big deal? Or am I really excited what Krishna is saying? Oh my God. So every time we are picking up the Bhagavad Gita, we need to have that kind of mood that when I read the verse, I should be able to say, oh my God, I never saw this before. What a wonderful statement from Krishna. So in this way, we should have that strong feeling of wonderment with every reading of the Bhagavad Gita. Then our reading of Bhagavad Gita is successful. So you can see how Sanjaya is expressing his total, you can say, ecstatic position, where after hearing the Bhagavad Gita, he is just feeling that I have received something really wonderful. And after all, this dialogue is not between just some ordinary souls. It is between Vasudevasya, Mahatmanaha, Parthasya. It is between Krishna and Arjuna. So actually, we are so fortunate. It's not that we are receiving the Bhagavad Gita after such a long time. Most of the things are getting lost, and somehow or other we are receiving the Bhagavad Gita after many manipulations that have happened. But actually, the words of Krishna and Arjuna, they are captured verbatim. We are so fortunate to be able to hear exactly the dialogue that took place between Krishna and Arjuna. And then on top of that, the message is getting further embellished and sweetened because of the touch of their pure devotee, like Srila Prabhupada. So we are extremely fortunate to be able to come in contact with this wonderful dialogue that took place many, many years ago. And then at this point, Sanjay is giving all credits to his spiritual master for this ecstatic emotion that he developed because of hearing Bhagavad Gita. He's saying, Vyasat prasadat shrutavan etad guhyam ayam aham param yogam yogeshwarat Krishna sakshat katyataha swayam. By the grace of Vyas, he's giving all credit to his spiritual master. By the grace of Vyas, I have heard this supreme secret of yoga spoken directly by the Lord and Master of Yoga, or Yogeshwara, Krishna himself, Krishna Swayam. So this is the emphasis of the Bhagavad Gita. There is no literature in this whole planet where God himself is speaking. And there is a recorded message that is there, available to all of humanity to access. There is no such thing. We can visit any library of the world. We cannot find where the words of God directly recorded. So therefore, how fortunate we should consider ourselves to be. That I have heard this supreme secret of yoga. Supreme secret of yoga coming from whom? From the master of yoga, Yogeshwara, Krishna. And therefore he's saying Krishna Swayam, directly from Krishna. That is the special significance of this Bhagavad Gita. And then he's saying, he's further going into ecstasy. What impact is having? There are two kinds of impact you will see Sanjay is having. So he's saying, Rajan, samsritya samvadan imam adbhutam Keshava Arjunayo punyam hrishyami cha muhu muhu. That repeatedly remembering this wonderful and sacred dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, I'm experiencing thrill. He's experiencing thrill again and again. So here the emphasis is on the dialogue that took place, which means the words of Krishna. The words of Krishna are causing thrill within his heart. And in the next verse, he's pointing out the form of Krishna. Tacha sansritya rupam ati adbhutam hare. Vismayo me mahan rajan rishyami cha puna puna. Again, rishyami. So, and also repeatedly remembering the extraordinarily wonderful form of Lord Krishna. I am greatly wonderstruck, vismayo, and rejoicing, rishyami, again and again. Rishyami, rejoicing what? The vision of Krishna. So therefore, there are two sources of ecstasy for Sanjaya. One is Krishna's words, and the second is Krishna's form. And coming together, just making Sanjaya totally ecstatic. And this is the final words of the Bhagavad Gita and final words coming from Sanjaya. So you can see that these words are in one sense response to the first verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Because what is the first verse of the Bhagavad Gita? Dhritarashtra asked, Dhritarashtra uvacha, what? Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsava mamaka pandavaschaiva kim akurvata Sanjaya. After assembling my sons and the sons of Pandu, they are assembled on the battlefield. What did they do? In other words, Dhritarashtra was extremely nervous. He wants to find out the outcome. What happened? What's going on? That response Sanjaya gives finally in this verse. This is his conclusive response to Dhritarashtra. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishno, Yatra Partha Dhanurdhara, Tatra Shrir Vijayo Bhutir, Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama. In my opinion, wherever there is the Lord and Master of Yoga, Yogeshwara, Krishna, and wherever there is Arjuna, the carrier of the bow, there will be all these things present. Fortune. Second, victory. Okay? If you are worried, like, well, who is going to win? I'm already telling you this. There will be fortune, victory, power, and unwavering morality. Dhruva Nitir. All of these are going to be simultaneously present. Victory, power, unwavering morality, and good fortune. And therefore, pretty much the outcome of the Kurukshetra battle is already decided. Because after all, who is present there? Krishna and Arjuna. The perfect combination of the Supreme Master of Yoga or Yogeshwara and the perfect recipient of yoga, which is Arjuna, perfect student. And therefore, in my opinion, this is what is going to happen as an outcome of this battle. So let's summarize. So in this 18th chapter, here. So, okay. So this is like a summary of the 18th chapter. So Krishna talked about two kinds of actions. So the fruitive action and prescribed action. So fruitive action is kamyanam karma, and prescribed action is niyatam karma. The actions are of two kinds. So Krishna is saying that you should be renouncing the fruitive action. And The prescribed action, they are to be done with the spirit of renunciation. And that actually expands into all the three forms of activities, prescribed action: sacrifice, austerity, and charity. And while you are engaged in these prescribed activities, you should be aware of the 5 factors of action. And the 5 factors of action, we have studied: adhishanam, karta, vividhak prithak cheshta, karanam, and ultimately daivam. All these 5 factors are there. And if we are aware of all the 5 factors, then we will not consider ourselves to be the sole doer. And then we will not actually become egoistic. So then Krishna went into the dynamics of action. The action begins with a conception, and action gets driven by some motivation. And while the action is getting carried out, there are certain qualities of conviction and discernment that are there. So these are the words Krishna used. This is dhriti. This is buddhi. And this is karta, motivation. And this is jnana. And Krishna went through the description of all of these in 3 modes of material nature. So ultimately, Krishna talked about the action getting performed in the 3 modes of material nature, and ultimately giving a certain kind of experience, which is the happiness, right? So this is the sukha, which is having the qualities of goodness, passion, and ignorance. So Krishna talked about the gradations of those. Okay, and ultimately Krishna took us through the trajectory of the 3 forms of yoga: the karma yoga, the jnana yoga, and ultimately leading up to bhakti yoga, and at the same time giving the conceptions of the supreme absolute truth as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And ultimately, Krishna is saying that bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yascha asmi tattvataha tato mam tattvato gyatva vishate tat anantaram. So ultimately, the success is dependent on the bhakti, the element of bhakti that is there within the action. And in that bhakti is there, then you will be successful no matter what. And let me describe to you in this way. So what is most important in life? What Krishna is saying, what is most important in life? What is going on with this pen? What is most important thing in life is your GPA. Fortunately, not the grade point average, but essentially your goals, your purpose, and your actions. So you can see it in this way. Your goals are essentially related to the knowledge which define the direction of your life, where you are headed, This defines the direction of your life. And then there are the why factors. Why? The motivations. And ultimately, we carry forward our actions, right? So we are engaged in various activities, or you can say karma. So now, if you think about, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, there were 2 parties assembled there. There is the Kauravas and the Pandavas. Now, both the parties, they have their goals set. Yes, I'm going to fight this battle and win it, right? And therefore, their goals are, on both the sides, they want to win. But what is not very clear on the side of the Kauravas is the purpose. The purpose is not purified. So Krishna spoke the whole Bhagavad Gita to purify the purpose behind the activities. And therefore, out of these 3, what is most important is the purity of purpose. or purity of motivation with which we do things. And therefore, you can say also in this way that these goals, that's essentially coming from the head, right? And this is the heart aspect, and this is the hands. So head, heart, and hands. And therefore, the whole organization of the Bhagavad Gita is therefore naturally centering around that, yes, ultimately, you have to recognize that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore, that Krishna, when we make the knowledge, right, aligned with Krishna's interest, then it becomes Gyan Yoga. And when we make our karma aligned with Krishna's interest, then that becomes Karma Yoga. And when we fix our motivation, the purity, when we work towards the purification of the heart, doesn't matter what we do, then that why factor, the motivation behind everything is pleasure of Krishna, then that becomes the Bhakti Yoga. And this is what Krishna's entire message of the Bhagavad Gita is centered around. And you can see it in this way that when we are performing karma, now at a baseline level, we are performing our karma just based on our circumstantial attractions or psychophysical natures, or whatever pushes and pulls that we may have because of the makeup of our body and mind. And therefore, that nature, the conditioned nature, you can say conditioned nature, that conditioned nature is what we work with in this material world. That conditioned nature, either one can just work without any sort of guidance, So without guidance, when we just work in a conditioned nature, we may be very dutiful, but we will only become more and more entangled. But when we start actually identifying our psychophysical nature, our conditioned nature, and then we fit within the Varna society or Varna division of the society, understanding that, okay, my proclivity is more towards just study of scriptures, or my proclivity is more towards administration, or my proclivity is more towards Krishi Go Raksha Vanijya, economics, or my proclivity is just becoming an assistant in the overall organization. So depending on like how a spiritual teacher is observing our nature, so they may like to engage us. So when the conditioned nature is engaged properly, then that becomes prescribed duty. And those prescribed duties then act as the purification factor. And then this swabhava that exists, which generally we use to become entangled, when under guidance, when that swabhava is employed, then that becomes moving in the direction of our constitutional position, which is Swarupa, or that becomes a vehicle to reveal our Swarupa. Why? Because under guidance, we are now trying to engage our free will appropriately for the pleasure of Krishna. So from the Swabhava, we can actually, using the free will properly, we gravitate towards our constitutional position, and then we restore to our true constitutional position as the servant, part and parcel servant of Krishna. And that is what Krishna's instruction of the Bhagavad Gita is, that yes, we have to recognize that we all have certain proclivities, but when we are engaging those psychophysical propensities appropriately for Krishna's pleasure, then that uncovers our Swarupa, that uncovers our real spiritual nature. And therefore, the practice of Bhakti Yoga puts us very, very quickly on that platform without our even waiting to evolve our Swarupa. Because after all, from a spiritual standpoint, from the platform of being a spirit soul, we are all related to Krishna as a part and parcel. So the sooner we are able to recognize it and engage in the the pure devotional activities, the more aligned we would be in terms of the ultimate goal of life. Therefore, our journey is really from our Swabhav to Swarupa. And in this way, we need essentially here the willpower. If you remember, I was talking about the willpower is needed to actually to follow the guidance and not just misuse our free will. But those who are already sort of cognizant of their Swarupa, like in the case of Arjuna or pure devotees, they don't need any willpower. They are just naturally engaged in the loving devotional service of Krishna. And that is what is the aim of Bhagavad Gita, to purify our existence, bring us to the highest point of loving devotional service unto Krishna, and ultimately go back to Godhead and be with Krishna forever. So thank you very much. And let's see if you have any questions or comments. Any question or comment?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, can you hear me?
Hare Krishna, I can hear you.
Thank you for this nice presentation, Prabhu. So, one question, as you mentioned that pure devotees are automatically inclined towards the uh, will of the Lord. So, obviously, Arjuna's case is also the same. Just one question, like as we hear about the Hridaya Durvillam in the beginning, weakness of heart. So is it to understand that, okay, Krishna caused that, otherwise that is not the constitutional position of Arjuna to have weakness of heart?
Yes. Just with 4 words, we mentioned in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Pashyan etan kurun iti. Behold the assembled armies in front of you. Through those 4 words, Krishna induced bewilderment in Arjuna, just so that he can act like an ordinary person like us, so that we can benefit from this wonderful dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. Definitely. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu.
All right, anything else?
Yes, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, I had a question about the purity of actions that you mentioned.
Yes.
So many times we do devotional, so-called devotional activities, right? Okay, kirtan or this seva or that seva, attending lectures and all of that for our own purification. But many times we are doing it either because we are told that's the thing to do or that we should be doing it. So how do we gauge the purity of those actions? Like if we're still not at the level of really knowing, even between 2 devotional activities, which one should I be doing? How do we figure out which action we should be doing?
Right. So let me just share the screen one more time. Just put it in full screen mode. Okay. So overall, there are 2 axes, right? One is the purity of motivation, and another is clarity of the goal. And we are somehow going like this, hopefully. So as we engage in Shastric study, we are getting more clarity. And as we are engaged in purificatory activities like chanting, right? Our heart is getting cleansed, and therefore we are getting more and more purified. Now, one of the definitions that is given of the Vaidhi sadhana bhakti is that the bottom line is that we are not spontaneously attracted to any of these things. But still, we do that. We do that under scriptural guidance as well as the guidance of the spiritual master, right? So we may not have so much of attraction, so much of taste for any of these things. But what we have developed is some level of attraction, you can say affinity, you can say love. For what? For a person. For, I would say, an able representative of Krishna. So this creates a big difference. So because of our attraction, affinity, love for the able representative of Krishna, we are willing to bend our ways, to act under guidance. And because of the accountability that we may share with such a representative of Krishna, they act as great sort of checkpoints in our devotional journey as we move in this, like this trajectory of getting a higher clarity of the goal, getting a higher purity of motivation with the help of these two parallel tracks, the hearing and chanting track. So this is what makes us more cognizant. Because if we do not have any sense of accountability, we will be accountable to our own mind, and which is always there to justify anything. And therefore that becomes a little dangerous. So that's what I would say as how we can actually protect the creeper of our devotional service is by developing a strong relationship, which is basically developing some attraction, affinity, love with an able representative of Krishna. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhuji. So till we have such a person in our lives,
Well, Srila
it's our
Prabhupada.
mind which is dictating, or we, as you said, we we
Yeah,
use
yeah,
any
yeah.
justification, reasoning.
Yeah,
So
so
what
that's
to do in
why
that
it's
case?
not easy, right? Yeah. So without actually developing that kind of a relationship, sometimes devotional service um, can become like a show. It can become a pretense. It can become also an activity of competition. I don't know. It can become several different forms. It just um, there is PDS, right? PDS can be translated as pure devotional service. It can be also translated as pure devotee syndrome.
Right. Yeah.
So, so oftentimes we fall within the trap of this, and the International Society for Krishna Consciousness becomes more and more International Society for Behavior Modification.
Mm.
And that is a little dangerous place to be in, because after all, this movement, the movement is meant to be progressive to the extent that we bring that credence to Krishna's message that Machittaha, we have to become conscious of Krishna. And ultimately, that consciousness of Krishna can be further refined when there is a consciousness behind that activity, is how we can mature our relationship with a representative of Krishna.
So Prabhuji, till we have such a person in our lives, if we have a choice between two devotional activities, attending a lecture, attending a kirtan, doing this, doing that, doing this seva, that seva, whatever, should we then purposely do the things that we really don't feel like doing, just to make sure that it's a
I think whatever
purification
we
thing?
do, Mataji, there is going to be always a danger, whatever we do. So my point is that this power of guidance cannot be underestimated. That's what my point is. Power of guidance cannot be underestimated. And that's why throughout the Bhagavad Gita, as well as in the purports, Prabhupada emphasizes a lot on this point. It is there for a reason. Because otherwise, it's, yes, like we may actually work very, very hard also, but at the same time, we may be actually satisfying our own ego if we are not able to pass on the credits of our devotional activities to a person who is ready to correct us also. It's important to be corrected also from time to time. Otherwise, then we are our own boss.
Yeah.
So that would be my actually straightforward answer to your question. That actually, yes, this point is extremely crucial. That's why Krishna says, Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshyanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshinah. If you want to enter into the realm of knowledge, you have to approach someone that we can do those three activities to: the submission, inquiry, and service. Without having the channel for submission, inquiry, and service, the knowledge doesn't get like fructified into realized knowledge. It doesn't get really activated in such a way that we are moving closer and closer to Krishna.
So I understand the theoretics of what you're saying, but what about people who don't have that in their lives currently, and it's
Aspire.
still, yeah.
Aspire. So
Okay.
So sincerity of aspiration is what is going to lead us to that. My point is that ultimately Krishna definitely reciprocates with the sincerity of his devotees, right? So we pray to Srila Prabhupada that please reveal someone who can actually give me guidance. So the sincerity with which we aspire for that, Krishna will send someone, or Krishna will reveal within your own heart that this is the person. That's what my point is. But we have to have a strong aspiration to move in that direction. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Right.
Hare
Until then,
Krishna,
we
Prabhu.
do the best. Till then, we do the
Till
best
then,
that we
yeah.
can.
And knowing that, yes, definitely I would be making a lot of mistakes. Like we
Yeah.
have to take it for granted.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Just to, extension to what the discussion we had right now, it's also said that when we are ready, the Guru comes by automatically. Is that true?
Well,
And how do we know that we are ready?
nothing happens like just magically. We have to also catch the magic around us, In other words, we have to be also keeping our radar active to catch. Krishna is sending on a regular basis, those opportunities to connect with someone. But if we are not actually actively pursuing that, we may not recognize it. So Krishna is doing his part, but unfortunately, sometimes we hide under the rock. We may hide under the rock and say, "Oh, there is no sunshine," But the problem is that I am the one who is hiding under the rock, and the sun is vibrantly glowing. So that's most of the time our situation is. We have to keep our antennas open.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for such a wonderful, enlightening, in-depth discourse on the Gita with the succinct message of bhakti yoga, taking the elevator rather than all the other steps that we could potentially take to on our journey for liberation, whether it's what we're intending to do or it's something which comes because of what we've done without our desires. My question to you is that, in the very last few shlokas, you said that the information should not be shared this is a very confidential information which shouldn't be shared with anyone um, unless they're acutely in tune with this. So, the whole, with most religions, they're all very open and welcoming. And the ISKCON movement in itself was a very uh, powerful, strong movement where they were actually preaching the message of Krishna to people who were completely oblivious to it and who had no knowledge of it whatsoever.
Right.
So were we one doing a disservice by violating that tenet that Krishna said that this should only be shared to people who are willing and wantingly recipients of this knowledge? And maybe, this is I think that was my question. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, so that's why I was removing any form of misunderstanding in that particular verse by saying that one should go systematically. If one just jumps into the most confidential conclusion or the supreme instruction of Krishna without giving the necessary background, yes, we are falling trap of that, and we might end up doing a disservice. So I was emphasizing on like the systematic presentation, where just like Krishna led us through the Atma Gyan, gradually giving an understanding of the knowledge of this world, like how the modes of material nature are operative in so many different ways. And before Krishna actually talked about just surrender to me alone, Krishna gave a lot of background. And therefore, we also have to kind of follow in the footsteps of Krishna. If we just kind of give this very high instructions, and you can even take it to the limit that if we talk about the confidential Leela or the pastimes of Krishna that he has with the gopis and all, that's completely and a very dangerous territory to be in. So one should therefore, if you see Srila Prabhupada's lectures, right, you will see that most of Srila Prabhupada's lectures are very, very basics. They're very basic because he is connecting with the audience at the more fundamental level. Like first you understand the overall science of the soul, the science of the existence of this material world, before you can understand the science of God. So Krishna is basically pointing us to that principle that yes, we should first make people favorable. And once people are favorable, they're already belonging to that class of devotees, so to speak. And then you can speak the confidential instruction. So one should be careful. That's the key point.
Thank you, Prabhuji. That actually does make a lot of sense. So you're not sharing the confidential information at the onset. You're
Exactly.
providing some introduction to them, and then if they're so inclined, then they're moving towards that confidential information. You're very right on that, because even there's so much knowledge that's contained in the Gita, and you have a tremendous grasp on it. But even after listening to all of your discourses on it, I have a very finite, very minuscule. I look for, as they say, the take home point, the take home message. What is the succinct condensation of everything that's been presented that is actionable, that we can work on? So it's good that there's a breadth of knowledge and wisdom in it, but it's also even more fantastic that there's very actionable, succinct take-home messages that we can act upon. Because I'm not sure who all are able to, even in spite of being engaged and putting considerable effort, are able to fully understand and appreciate everything that's contained within. So thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Yeah, you make
And
a very
Happy New Year.
important point, actually. The point that you're making here is that it's not that at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, we just say, okay, after all, it's all about after we go back to Godhead, we'll figure it out, like it's all our next life. No, Bhagavad Gita is largely dealing with how we can change our mindset currently while we are facing this material world. And therefore, the points of hearing and chanting are emphasized so much that if we want to make one practical change in our life, we can take the chanting process very seriously. So that is what is going to make us pure and make us more and more eligible to go back home, back to Godhead. The idea is not to just wait for that grand finale, you know, but actually think about how to actually improve the quality of our life right now, the quality of our interactions with others, the quality of our thought processes that we have when we are interacting with this world. So all of these are very, very critical. So thank you so much for bringing that point up. So it's very, very practical. Nandini Mataji wrote something. Just one question to summarize. More for new generations, did Arjun felt more independent when did Arjun felt more independent when Gita was completed? So actually, by the word independent, you probably mean that he's clear in terms of what he needs to do. Is that what you mean, Nandini Mataji? I just want to understand.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. Yeah. So the outcome of Bhagavad Gita, we can see it in this way. The mood with which we receive the Bhagavad Gita is the mood of humility. We receive Bhagavad Gita with humility, and what we get out of the Bhagavad Gita is courage. Courage to face the world. So yes, if you think about it, all the characters of the Bhagavad Gita, all the characters, whether it is Dhritarashtra or Duryodhana or Arjuna, they are all facing the same problem. It's the problem of fear. They're all facing the same problem. But Arjuna is the one who actually took the action of submitting before Krishna. And when he submitted before Krishna, Krishna dispelled all his doubts, gave him the position, the right position with which to operate in this world. And therefore, he became courageous. He became fearless. So in that sense, yes, he came to the point of now fully sort of confident in applying the instructions of Krishna. So we hear with humility and execute with courage in this material world. So what we get out of the Bhagavad Gita is really that courage. Is that okay?
So, yeah, very much, the answer is really deep, that you hear with humility and it comes out with courage. So, what could humility mean to one person may be different to the others, right?
So humility, I like to define as proximity to reality.
Okay.
So reality is that we are all part and parcel servant of Krishna. When we forget that, then we become very egoistic. Right? If we know all the time that I am a servant of Krishna, I am a servant of Krishna, I am a servant of Krishna, just imagine what would be the consciousness when we are doing anything. So humility means to be really grounded in that conception that I am a part and parcel servant of Krishna. No matter what I'm doing, I may be engaged in so many different external activities, but internally, I carry the conviction, the clarity that I am a part and parcel servant of Krishna. That is humility.
Okay. So willingly becoming dependent on Krishna.
Yes.
That's what I'm getting. Okay.
That's right. Basically, yeah, that point is good that you made, that willingly, right? We are always dependent on Krishna, whether we like it or not.
Right.
But when we actually willingly become dependent on Krishna, then we are striking a loving relationship with Krishna. And that loving relationship is what is making us courageous in the face of all kinds of circumstances of life.
Okay. That's beautiful answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. Very good.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, just wanted to connect few points actually.
Okay.
As you are talking about fear, so as it is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhayam Ditya Viniveshita Sad Vipariyasmiti. So as others, other than Arjuna, on the side of Kauravas, they were focusing something other than Krishna. That's why they were always fearful. And while we act based on our mind, thinking that our mind is totally purified without taking shelter of spiritual master, so whatever advancement we get, the point is our false ego will be never checked. And this false ego, until unless it is converted to true ego, will never understand, realize Krishna, never realize our constitutional position. And therefore, Krishna very mercifully sends the spiritual master to train us within this material world itself. When we are here and we don't know what to do, so we follow the instructions, and gradually, as we get purified, what we didn't like before, we start liking. And that becomes our, which was kind of second nature before, becomes our original nature, because we identify ourselves with that and gradually become purified. And then by the mercy of spiritual master, we become eligible to go back to Godhead. So I just wanted to connect those points.
Very nice.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for your kind words. After all, I'm not doing anything. I'm just simply repeating what I have heard, what I have understood in my own reading of Srila Prabhupada's writings. And I hope like these series of discussions that we had will act as further motivation for you to regularly study Srila Prabhupada's books. And that will naturally make you connected with Krishna and will make you strong in your devotional life. So I'm really, really grateful to all of you for joining, and we'll connect in the future.
Thank you, Prabhu. A quick question, Prabhu. Based on all this knowledge, wonderful knowledge that you have already shared, what is your recommendation for all of us, to, some kind of a tip to keep this knowledge in our, in our memory so that we are able to implement it? Like some kind of a regular practice, like one chapter a day, or some kind of a tip that you recommend so that this stays in our vision.
Yeah, I think that's a nice question. I just feel that we should not just engage in sort of checklist sort of devotional activity that one chapter a day may appear to be a checklist, to some people. It's actually important to approach Srila Prabhupada's books with some level of appreciation that, okay, I'm getting something really coveted here. It's not an ordinary thing that I'm coming in touch with. And when we are reading the purports or reading a specific verse, we should really, really deeply connect with the message and try to see how we can apply. I mean, always like asking that question, how I can apply this, whatever I have learned this. So in this way, we make our hearing and reading very active. And my suggestion would be to actually set aside a calendar time every day. I mean, these days, everyone is quite mature in managing their time. There are so many tools available. So you can use those to actually create a calendar time where you are spending some time reading Srila Prabhupada's books. And that is actually going to take us forward. So when we are reading, we kind of see ourselves as just like Prabhupada always writes, your ever well-wisher, that my dear so-and-so. And then you read the purport, and then you can feel that you're ever well-wisher. Then we will connect with the message very, very deeply. So basic tips that I'm suggesting is like to have some calendar time for keeping in touch with Srila Prabhupada's books, and then read in a very personalized manner. And of course, like as Krishna said, right, as we are hearing and reading, we should share this knowledge with others. The more we share, the more our own convictions become deeper, our realizations grow. And every time we are picking the same verse of the Bhagavad Gita, you will see that it's a fresh verse. Like we may have read it 15 times before, but this 16th time it will speak a different message altogether. And you will feel like, oh wow, I've never seen this before. It happens to me all the time. And that wonderment is what actually keeps our devotional life alive, you know. I don't know whether that.
Might I suggest a corollary to that in terms
Yes,
of
please, Ro.
selecting?
Please, Ro.
I wanted to suggest a corollary to that in terms of a time, as the best time for spiritual activities in the morning. If we're going to engage in these readings of the books and things, we should choose a time earlier in the day when we're not tired and exhausted, because unfortunately we relegate all of these activities to the end of the day when we're tired and exhausted and realistically just ready to go to sleep. And so our ability to absorb and assimilate this knowledge is also diminished in those later parts of the day. So whatever you do, whenever you do it, if you're trying to actively be involved in this, I think the best time to do it is early in the morning rather than any other time during the day.
And along that point, I would mention that we have Bhagavatam reading going on every day, Monday through Thursday. And you're most welcome to actually join on a regular basis and soak into Srimad Bhagavatam. And we'll see like how deep these scriptures are as we study on a regular basis. So that's all I would like to say. Is that okay, Ranga Mataji?
Yes, thank you, Prabhu, because just hearing, how do we put it into practice, right? So these tips are helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Can the updated full recording be shared? So the recordings are all there. I mean, obviously, I shouldn't say all there. I need to post. I have been backlogged, but they're all there in the Divine Mindfulness channel, YouTube channel. So I can still share like after I have posted everything. I know the whole 18th chapter is needing to be posted. I have not gotten time. Thank you for the reminder.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, so thank you very much. I'm really, really grateful to you. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.